Good morning and welcome back to the FloTrack podcast. My name is Lincoln Shrike, joined today by Gordon Mack. It's Wednesday, July 15th. How are you today, Gordon?
You know what today is?
Payday.
And do you know payday for who?
Tax day. Tax day.
Tax day. Payday for the government.
Yeah.
Did you do
Yeah.
tax? Did you finish your taxes?
I finished them before the typical April 15th. So, yeah, I was done with that. I mean, I'm usually a pretty good procrastinator, but by the time they extended that, it was, I don't know, already into March or something. So I was like ready to go. I'm looking to get that tax return, What
I
about you?
I owed money, so I had to
That's
send a
tough.
check. They cashed it today. Saw it go through on my bank account. I was like, okay. It basically canceled out payday for me. Literally,
Yeah.
my tax bill was basically equivalent to my 2 weeks check. So basically made $0 the past 2 weeks.
That's tough. That's tough to hear. Sorry to I don't know, to have that happen to you, but
It's okay.
you got to pay Uncle Sam, or if you're like me, you got to get paid by Uncle Sam. It's either way. Okay. It's Wednesday. Not a ton to talk about. I feel like we've covered results. We've covered potentially what could happen across country. We've covered who's doing conference only, who's just canceling their season. You, though, have given us something to talk about. You said you had something exciting to bring out in our text thread yesterday. We didn't know what it was. Turns out it is basically the track and field equivalent for the Madden ratings, I should say. Why don't you tell the people what you came up with and how you came up with it and why you wanted to do it?
Yeah, so earlier this week, a bunch of the podcasts and just my Twitter feed was overwhelmed with football players debating and creating or just like conversating about their newly released Madden player ratings. And in the NFL world, it is a big deal whatever your rating is. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
Madden turns it into a big moment. They actually like give a gift to Pat Mahomes for being rated 99. It's like a huge deal, and all the players always think they're underrated than what they deserve to be. Carson Wentz was rated 84 as a quarterback, and I was like, "What? Carson Wentz? He's great." Uh, Aaron Rodgers was rated in the 80s, so everyone always has a reason for why they should be rated higher. And I thought, hey, we need this in track and field, so I got to it and I created player ratings for over 500 athletes on the men's and women's side. So, hey, got something for people to debate, and I feel like they're good
Mm-hmm.
ratings. Some people may think they're underrated, but the thing about player ratings is no one thinks they're overrated, right? No one is going to be like, "Oh, you rated me too high." It's always going to everyone's going to be like, "You rated me too low." So, I mean, I already see some people complaining about Grant Holloway's rating. He's rated 98. Like,
Mm-hmm.
can you imagine a football player being rated 98 in Madden and being like, "You should be a 99"? Come on. 98 is a good rating,
Well,
in my opinion.
Lamar, yeah, it is. Of course, I think Lamar Jackson didn't get a 99, which I don't know on the defensive side of the ball, but I know Christian McCaffrey and Pat Mahomes got 99s for Madden, but Lamar Jackson didn't. I assume he got a 98. But well, let's just jump through some of these or look through some of these because you did release these already on the site for both men and women. I encourage people to check them out because it is very, very extensive. 99 all the way when we get down in the 70s, a lot of names I have not heard of. Some of them I just have to assume you made them up. Where did you find all these names?
So it's every event, man. You may only know the people who are ranked in the 70s who are distance athletes or sprinters, but there's a lot of triple jumpers, discus throwers, hammer throwers, decathletes that you might not have heard
Mm-hmm.
of. We all know like the top people, like everyone knows who Christian Taylor is, but do we know the equivalent of the Rob Napolitano in triple jump? Probably not, but we probably do know the
Mm,
equivalent of Rob Napolitano in the mile. He's like, Rob, he's like a 338 guy. So who's the equivalent
yeah,
of a 338 1500 meter in the discus? I had to do some research. So that's what I
I
did.
see.
I went through
I see.
and I found everyone. So it's kind of like your ultimate rankings in a way because you're kind of combining uh,
Sure.
a cross event a rating
Hmm.
system, kind of like what's the equivalent of a great triple jumper to a great sprinter to a great 5K runner and
Yeah.
a marathon.
And
But yeah,
can you reveal how, I mean, obviously you get to the very top, it seems easy to decipher, and we'll get into the who's in the very top and who's just outside it in a moment, but like what was the exact system? And particularly when you're talking about 80 to 90, when you're in that gray area and it's tough. Obviously this isn't a perfect science, but how did you suss out the different point totals?
so a small, maybe like a okay. So most of it is based off of. So this is not your career. It's all based on what you've done for me lately. And what you've done for
Okay.
me lately means I only looked at your resume from uh, the spring of 2019 to present. So what you did indoors in 2019 doesn't matter to me. It's only what you did last year during the track season, outdoor track season, all the way through
Yeah.
indoor, and if you ran at all, outdoors this year. So like Christian Schweizer's 14 sub 1430 counts towards his rating, but Evan Jager, who hasn't run, who didn't run at all in 2019, hasn't even run a steeple yet. He's kind of disadvantaged because he doesn't have any marks really to show that he's a great steepler. So
Hmm.
it's based off of 2019 and on as your resume. I take into account how you did at USA's, but mainly if you were a top 3 runner or qualified for worlds, that helps you.
Sure.
Um, and then in the end, the way I did it is it's not about where you are, like just because you're the best javelin thrower in the US doesn't mean you're going to be rated like 98 or 97. Because if javelin is a weak event in the US, I'm not going to give it the same credibility as being the best sprinter in the US. So, for example, um, Kara Winger, she is the best javelin thrower of all time in U.S. history. However, historically, the women's javelin throw is not a deep event internationally, right? So
Got
like
it.
so I want to make sure I kind of like didn't favor weaker events for harder events. So you may be the eighth best 100-meter runner in the U.S., but in the world, that eighth best U.S. runner is probably what the 15th best in the world because there's not that many
Yeah.
great non-U.S. sprinters. Whereas if you're the best javelin thrower in the U.S., you could end up being the 50th best javelin thrower in the world. And so I wanted to make sure I kind of compared. Not Kara's not the 50th. You might be like the 25th, right? So
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure I gave credit to better events that the
That
U.S. are
makes
in,
sense.
and I came up with the rating. So I had a way of a formula um, where I kind of figured out what your mark is equivalent to each other, and I gave everyone kind of a universal mark. So, what's the equivalent of 336 in a 1500 is the same thing as what in a triple jump. And then I had that, and then I kind of rated it down, and then you had a giant list of 850 names. And then it's just like, that's your order, right? And then I took blocks of like, here's the block of 88s, here's the block of 87s, here's the block of 86s. And then that's how I created it.
And to be clear, I'm looking at a lot of these names. Some of these are still collegiate athletes, right? There's a lot. You're going so deep as to include athletes that have never even competed at U.S. championships.
Yeah, because if they had a good mark holds up. So it's only
Hmm.
like the only category you need to be, the only thing you needed to be included in this is just being American. It's U.S. athletes only. So
Yeah.
if you're a fast American who isn't pro yet, you can be rated high. Or if you're in high school and you have a fast time, you can be rated high. I mean, Justin Robinson, I think, is rated pretty high because he ran 44 seconds in high school. So that counts. You don't need to be a signed athlete to be in this rating system. I know we might have some, I'm sure EA Sports has to deal with all that stuff like, oh, collegiate athletes in a video game. How do you deal with that? But in this world where there isn't a real video game, we can include whoever we want.
Got it. Well, I want to just start to go through some of the list, and we'll kind of look at names that we can argue back and forth if they're overrated, underrated, properly rated. And we don't have to do that for every individual name because we'd be here until August. But let's start with the 99 club on the men's side. I don't think I can argue with who's included. I would want to argue though who's not there, and I understand you can't put 30 athletes in the 99 group, but we'll go through it here. Christian Coleman, he's 99 on the track, maybe about a 40 when it comes to whereabouts. Okay, that's a joke. Just kidding. But he's there for now, obviously, because he's world champion, best 100-meter runner in the world. Assuming, well, can't assume anything, but if he's in Tokyo, he's clearly the best. And this is going back to 2019. So, yes, he belongs. Donovan Brazier, duh. Noah Lyles, duh. Christian Taylor, that's obvious. Joe Kovacs won the world title. Sam Kendricks, the same for him. That is an obvious group. And I know you mentioned you had been interacting with him on Twitter. Grant Holloway, explain to me why he's a 98, not a 99.
Yeah, so Grant Holloway obviously is the first man out. If anyone, he is the 98.9 guy because he is a world champion. He's the only world champion not in the 99. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to make the 99 group 6 only. So I was like, you only get 6. And I had to decide. So I basically had to choose 6 from this group of 7 because the world champion basically says you're in the running for 99. And looking at the marks that the other 6 have done historically compared, like where their marks rank in all time is a lot better than where 1298 ranks. So that's why. And it was just like a purely, I also could argue like, okay, well, Grant Holloway didn't win USA's, so you could kind of hit him on that, right?
Tough.
Which is tough, but he had a long track season, but in the end, he won the one that matters most, which is Worlds. But I also think, in my mind, I was like, is it mean to not be is it rude to not put someone at 99? I kind of think if Grant was like at 96, you'd be like, hey, that's disrespectful, or maybe even 97. But I like to think that 99 and 98 are 1A and 1B. Like they're the same in my mind. It's just semantics, That's
Fair.
the way I look at it. So, but yeah, Grant Holloway being 98, clearly he's the one most deserving of a 99. But hey, man, I only had to pick 6. Who are you going to take out?
Why did you just limit it to 6? Any particular reason for that?
I feel like I needed to give myself rules, and I feel like you can. If you don't stop it at 6, then why not stop it? If I put Grant Holloway in there, then I'm like, okay, well, why not Dana Roberts? He beat Holloway at USA's. Okay, well, why not Ryan Krauser? He literally is just as good as Joe Kovacs, just happens to get second to him. They throw within 2 centimeters of each other. Why not Ryan Krauser be in there? Ry Benjamin, he's all-time great in the 400 hurdles. He just happens to be going up against another all-time great. So I could justify my way into adding more and more to the 99 group. So I was like, okay, give yourself a hard cap. 6, that's all you get.
Yeah.
Deal with it. And, maybe you hope there was less than 6 world champions, so it's not that hard of a rule to follow, but USA was good this past year, so we had 7. So, hey. Maybe he'll get an upgrade later on in the game. Maybe Grant Holloway can find a way to get an upgrade to go to 99.
The 2022 edition. Maybe he's the cover. Okay. And I guess we should make this clear. As of yet, EA has not picked up this game. So this is not a real video game if this has not been made clear already. Let's move on to the women's side of the 99 player ratings. Dalilah Muhammad, that's obvious. You're not going to get an argument there. Emma Coburn, yes. Shelby Houlihan, we can talk about that. Very, very good. We know that. But just one sec. Deanna Price, Nia Ali, and McLaughlin. Now, whereas the men, you had to leave off a 2019 world champion. You have a woman on here in Shelby Houlihan who has never even medaled, did not medal in 2019, which famously got 4th in the 1500. Now, it feels like there's good reason to have her in the 99 when you consider she dominates all distance events she runs in the U.S., and she just broke the American record in the 5K, of course, set the American record in the 1500 in Doha. Was it easier on the women's side to come up with these 6 than it was for the men, just simply because you didn't have as many world champions?
Yeah, I would say it was easier. Shelby got in there. Maybe I could argue it's recency bias. I was like, how can you not put this girl who is just cruising, like dominating, just runs 14:23. And I mean, I also was confused. Do I want to put Sydney in the 99? I was like, wow, like, or do you, I mean, it's kind of crazy to have two people from the same event in a
Yep.
99. Like, that just shows how good Delilla was to have your person you're beating also be a 99. But I thought it was a little easier. I mean, looking at the 98s, the 97s, it's kind of hard to find someone who I think would deserve the 99 over the other person. I feel like everyone there kind of has been historically dominant, either was a world champion or just like no one touched them at all ever on the US circuit. Like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, Emma
Yeah.
Coburn's not a world champion, but like Emma Coburn
Well,
is the
in
steeplechase, right?
2017 she was, but you
2017
mean
she was, but
last year?
like
Yeah.
last year, Emma
Yeah.
Coburn is the steeplechase, right?
Yeah.
You know, and then same thing with Shelby. Shelby is the 15 5K in the US. Like, no one just touches her. They just assume she wins. So I think that's
Mm-hmm.
why Emma and Shelby, the two distance athletes of that group, got in that top tier. And then Deanna Price, kind of quietly, it's like throwing out of her mind in the hammer
Yep.
throw. So that's why she was up there as well.
Got it. Okay. I don't think there's too much arguing there. From my part, those are the pretty far and away the top six. I guess a name that I'm not seeing up there that was a medalist last year, and it was a weaker event, but Brittany Brown in the 200 silver medalist. I know that's a weaker event, but let's see, where do you have her? You got her down in
I
a
have her at
95. Are you
95.
taking stock of the weakness of that event to knock her down that
Yes.
much when you consider that she was a silver medalist?
Yes. That
Yeah.
is basically 100% the reason why. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I
Got
mean,
it.
Vashti Cunningham got third, I believe, got bronze, but her her jump of 2 meters historically isn't as like an all-time great mark. I mean, she's dominating the US circuit, but it's kind of like you want so if she was jumping like maybe 205 meters, then maybe Vashti can move up into the 97s, 98s. But I think the weakness of the high jump in the US hurt Vashti, and the weakness of the 200 just on the world stage hurt Brittany Brown.
Okay. Let's move on to the 98s for the men. We got Daniel Roberts, Justin Gatlin, Rye Benjamin, Fred Curley, Lopez Lamong, Ryan Krauser, Grant Holloway, as we mentioned, Michael Norman, Will Clay. A lot of these guys you could kind of argue there. And then, as you discussed, the 98.9 group. I don't know if there's anyone. These are all solid dudes. Everybody. I mean, Roberts obviously bowed out at the World Championships in the first round, but he won USA's. Lamont continues to run fast at 35. Norman didn't even make the 400 final, but that was due to an injury. Any difficulty here? Anybody you? We talked about the guy in Holloway who you thought about putting up to 99. Anybody that just crept into this 98 group that maybe barely made the cut?
Uh, I mean, not really. I feel like all
Okay,
of them were kind of very deserving of the 98. I didn't really have any hard time filling out the 98 group,
I
if I'm gonna
see.
be honest. I
Okay.
feel like on the men's side, it starts getting a little complicated once you get past the top like 12. I felt like then
Yeah.
it started becoming you're splitting hairs, and then you start getting the people who you know aren't world medalists or competing, making world finals, and then just gets a
Yeah.
little bit harder. But I feel like the
Yeah.
98
Yeah.
group was pretty on its
Well,
own.
I will take issue with some of your mid 90s athletes in just a moment. We'll move on to the women's side of the 98 things because I take no issue there, but I'm seeing some things of which we'll have to debate. The 98 for the women's side, Ashley Spencer, Jen Sure, I always have a hard time with that name. Kendra Harrison, Courtney Frericks, Krista Schweizer, and Sandy Morris. I'm a little surprised to see Ashley Spencer there. Now I know I again, I did she make the world final last year? I have to. I can't fully remember. Now I know she's a 2016 Olympic medalist, so that may have propelled her up to that. Even though you said this is all based on 2019, but when I look at this list, the two names I'm surprised to see: Jen Sure and Ashley Spencer. How'd you come up with them as 98s?
Ashley Spencer ran the 10th fastest women's 400-meter hurdle of all time in the world last year.
Oh, okay.
No
That makes
one
sense.
realized it because
Because
she's losing to
people were,
two other people who are
yeah,
Americans. And it's just like, but she ran the 10th fastest time ever by a person in the world. So I think that's why. So she
I see.
doesn't have the like medal accolades because again, two of the people in her event are getting all the accolades, especially on the U.S. side of
Yep.
things. But she quietly ran an impressive time this last year. I mean, she ran 53:11, I think. Is that what she ran?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She ran that in, she may have, she ran that, she matched her PR last year. So she ran that
Yeah.
funny thing in 2017, she ran 53:11 at USA's, and then she ran that exact time in the US final to get third. And then at Worlds, she got sixth. So didn't quite live up to that at the World Championships. But okay. Yes, she gets certainly overshadowed by Muhammad and McLaughlin. But okay, I can understand that. And Jen Sure uh, continues to jump high at what it feels like she's been around forever. What put her up in that high category, though?
Yeah. I mean, it's just her consistently putting up a high mark. I mean, what is she? She jumped pretty high indoor. Maybe was it
She
indoors
always
this
jumps.
year?
Feels like she always jumps high indoors. I don't know if it was this year. 38 years old. I mean, she jumped 485 at USA's and didn't even win.
She jumped four. Yeah, she jumped 491.
Yeah. Okay. She got
Which is
seventh at Worlds. So yeah, she
yeah.
continues to be very good at an age when
She,
the pole vault is
she
usually you're done with it at that point.
she has the same season's best as Sandy Morris.
Mm-hmm.
They
Mm-hmm.
both jumped
In
491.
2020.
So, from season best to
20.
me is spring of 2019 to present.
I see. I
So
understand. Okay. You got your own
so it's
definition.
like
Okay.
two and a half seasons, right? It's
That's
this
fine.
indoor, this little bit of outdoor, and then last outdoor. So
Well, this is a good exercise, I think, because making these rankings, because it does allow you to see some of these athletes that had really, really strong seasons and continue to be very, very good, but maybe just missed the podium last year at the World Championships. So you're kind of like, they didn't do anything. There's just so many athletes. And obviously in the US, we're blessed to have so many gold medalists and medalists that you're kind of like, you miss out on the people that maybe got fourth through seventh, right? And who quietly had very, very strong seasons. So I understand. Okay, moving on. We got the 97s on the men's side. Daryl Hill, Mike Rogers, Omar Craddock, Matthew Centrowitz. Ooh, that's tough. Nathan Strother and Paul Chalimo. How did Nathan, no, all respect, how did Nathan Strother get in the 97s? Not a guy I anticipated would be that high.
I mean, he made the world team
Okay.
in the 400. It's hard to make. He was the third man behind Norman
Early.
and Curly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that helps him. So he gets a little bit of
Right.
bump for just being a world team qualifier, and then also, I mean, he ran a fast time. He ran low 44s. I mean, okay,
44-2.
this podcast is going to be like, why'd you do this? And I'm going to be like, okay, here's a resume. And like, in the end,
Yeah.
though, it's going to be, now we're starting to split hairs, right? Because Nathan
Yeah.
Strother is kind of the same thing to me as like a Mike Rogers. I mean, this is what's going to happen. We look at Nathan Strother and Mike Rogers in a different light, mainly because we come from a distance background. And we're kind of like,
Sure.
oh, yeah, they're a good sprinter. But dude, have you seen like what Bryce Hopple's been doing? He's been like tearing it up. And so we're going to think like,
No.
certain like distance athletes deserve more credit than sprinters or like
Sure.
a very good field event runner. So
Sure.
if you were to replace Strother with he's a 1500-meter runner and say this is a guy who's run, 3:34, gets third at USA's, and then makes it to the final or something like that. You'd be like, yeah, that's a really good distance athlete. He deserves to be 97. So I think the disconnect of like appreciating the next tier of sprinters is going to be hard for us to kind of contemplate where they deserve to be in these mid 90s.
And I get that. One thing I want to look at though with Rogers and Strother, neither made the final last year in their respective events, individual events in Doha. You look at Centrowitz, he did, and you look at Chalimo, obviously he did. Even with that baked in that distance bias, it feels like Rogers and Strother. They got him. I'm just saying these are guys that should be happy. Rogers and Strother, they should be happy coming in at 97s. These are guys I wake up today and I think those are 96, maybe even 95s. You got them 97. Are they paying you on the side to elevate their ranking? This could have impacts for future contracts. Be like, yo, I know I haven't made a world final in a bit, but you see my FloTrack track and field video game rankings? I'm a 97 right now. This could be very influential in the track and field economy.
So one thing is that we're gonna have to realize now is one other rule I gave myself was I wanted to make sure I have at least 6 as the minimum per player rating, right?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously the minimum goes up once we get to the lower tier numbers when I start having like 20 to 30 people in each rating. So if you are disagreeing with a Rogers and Strother being in the 97 rating, we can't just take
Mm-hmm.
them out and drop them. We have to replace them with who we think should be in a 97. So who
Okay.
would you rather put in those two slots that you think Rogers and Strother don't deserve?
Well, I look at, I mean, it was an issue I was going to bring up in a bit, but I'll go ahead and just do it now. I look at two people, and they used to be on the same team. Craig Ingles and Galen Rupp. We've got Craig Ingles at 95 and Rupp at 94. I know Rupp had been hurt, and for Ingles, he just got third at the U.S. Indoor 1500, so maybe that hurts that each of those athletes respectively. But those are 97 guys to me if we're taking this seriously. Like I mean, Rupp just dominated the trials, and Ingles won USA's last year. Feels like those guys are a little underrated. And then you could also have Hoppel in the place, I think, of Rogers or Strother. Hoppel just got fourth. So I look at that and say those are more 97 caliber type guys.
So what you're saying is that the 97 group should be 4 distance athletes and then 2 non-distance athletes?
I mean, there's no rules when it comes to what type of athlete we need to have in here.
No,
I'm
but
just saying we got guys.
there's not a rule. I'm not saying it's wrong as a
Yeah.
rule, but what I'm trying to imply is that there is a bias, right?
Uh huh.
Give a little
I
bit more
Sure.
we are a little more impressed by distance athletes performance than we are with a sprinter or field events athlete performance because we follow maybe
Maybe.
a distance athlete more, you know,
Sure, but I look
litigiously
again
and
at
intensely.
Rogers and Strother, and these guys did not make finals. And maybe you could say, oh, the 400 is a tougher event than the 1500 globally. Maybe you could make that argument, but I just look at it again. This isn't a perfect system, and I don't want to even know how many hours you spent on this. I'm not trying to dispute the whole thing. I just think Rogers and Strother have to be paying you on the side. Like that's the only logical conclusion here.
Yeah, I will
All
not
right.
reveal the compensation packages that I
Yeah.
received from certain
Yeah.
athletes. I'll keep that under wraps. I don't.
You
I
almost
sign non-disclosure
yeah.
agreements on these ratings.
And you wonder for Madden. I mean, they could probably take bribes, right? I mean that the player ratings for NFL for the Madden video game are a significant deal. So you almost wonder if that could be a corrupted experience. Okay, let's go to the 97s for the women. A couple athletes here I think could have been bumped a little bit higher. We have Ajay Wilson, Gwen Berry, Raven Rogers, Brooke Anderson, Jenny Simpson, Sha'Carri Richardson. To me, Ajay Wilson, if she wins gold in Doha, she's a 99. But here you have her
Correct.
down to a 97. Why? I guess I can understand. It feels like something's like you could have her at a 98, but then you would have to have had Raven Rogers at a 98, right? Because she beat her in Doha. So was that the logic? Did you kind of see those women as a pair? And why were they 97s as opposed to 98s?
Yeah, I looked at them as a pair. That is a true statement. So wherever they go, they got to go together. And yeah, I agree. If Ajay wins World, she becomes a 99. And at the same time, like what was her like season's best? I think she ran like 157. Is that what she ran? Maybe 157 high.
That sounds right. I mean, you have to, remember she wasn't chasing Caster Semenya for a lot of it.
Yeah.
So her times were kind of her setting the pace and winning races. So
Yeah. So I think
that sounds right. I'm
it,
not sure.
uh I mean the women's 800 has kind of changed, and one running 158 low isn't what it used to be, I feel like. And I feel
Mm,
like Ajay kind of
ain't that the
her
truth?
times like globally, historically globally, um, aren't as impressive. I mean, if she ran maybe a 156 low or 155 high, that would have
Mm-hmm.
helped her, I think, with the all-time greatness. I mean, like I said, like Dalil Muhammad is breaking the world record, right? And then Ajay Wilson's running 157 mids. So you're like, okay, you don't want to have rose-colored glasses on the 157 just because you're like, that's
Right.
impressive, sub 2 for a female 800-meter runner. Meanwhile, there's people breaking America, like Deanna Price throwing insane, and Anyway, so I agree she could be higher, but a lot of people could be higher. I mean,
Yeah.
we that's the best thing about these ratings is that a lot of people can say they deserve a better rating, and luckily, the 2022 player ratings come out a year from now, so get ready for those.
I can't wait. 96 on the men's side. Bryce Hoppel, Cravon Gillespie, TJ Holmes, Clayton Murphy, Kenny Bednarik, Woody Kincaid. Cravon Gillespie. Now, we know he ran fast in 2019 on the NCAA side. Didn't make the U.S. team as an individual. You can call him a world champion because I think he participated in the prelims of the 4x1. How do we bump him to a 96? Because it seems like he's next to guys that maybe he's not quite as good at comparatively across the global scale.
I mean, it's all based off of his 100-meter time, which
Mm-hmm. Like
historically is
992 or yeah,
yeah. What do you run?
994, maybe 994, 9, or maybe it was 993. Could have been right there in the middle. I'm looking it up. Everybody went fast. He ran 993 and also 1993. So yes, okay, I can see that a little
Yeah,
bit
so
better.
993 is actually pretty. It's not like he was a 996, 997 guy. So
Mm-hmm.
that helped
And
him. Yeah.
and Woody Kincaid up with the 96s. Here's his career resume. Finished third at USA's and ran 12:58. Full stop. That's it. Now, fantastic, but he's basically got two performances for his entire international career. Uh,
Not even international, right?
yeah,
You
I
could
don't even know if he's raced internationally. Like the guy has. Look, listen. For when he's healthy, he's obviously fantastic, and he surprised a lot of us with those two performances last year. Was the top three at USA's weighted more heavily, or the 12:58, or they just both
I
obviously
mean
propelled
both.
him? Yeah.
Both. I mean, one thing I try to do is I try to give credit for people who finish top 3 even if they didn't make the world team, because I feel like there's still like a little bit of that competition of just like being top 3 in your event shows that like, you're even though you technically weren't selected, I feel like you should get some little bit of credit. So that boosts them a bit. And then again, 1258 is 1258. That's pretty
Mm-hmm.
good. I mean, most of the 5K runners in America are running like 13:10s and
Mm-hmm.
13:15s, right? There's only like a group of 3, like you could say Chalimo, Lamong, and Kincaid, who are really running those elite 5K marks. Everyone else is kind of 10 seconds back. I mean, you would think like a Hassan Mead or an Eric Jenkins in his prime, or like these younger guys like McGordy and Fisher and Drew Hunter. None of those guys are running 13 lows. They're all running 13 teens. So I think Kincaid kind of separated himself from the pack to kind of
Yeah.
deserve being in the upper 90s.
I know we were going down the list here in order, but I do want to make a jump because you just mentioned Eric Jenkins' name, and I keyword searched his name, and a couple interesting guys in his 91 club. We got two fellows you may have heard of before. Matt Bowling and Justin Robinson, one a high schooler or just finished his high school career. in Justin Robinson, and then Matthew Bowling, a college freshman, soon to be sophomore. How did those high schoolers get so high?
They ran fast times, man. They
But Matt Bowling, I mean, his one was obviously was windy, right? And then he's
no, I mean
run what, 10, 10, 11, 10, 12,
10, 11.
10, 13? Okay.
Like 10, 11 is actually like, so think about this. I'll do a little thing. The 10th fastest man to ever run the 100 meters in the world ran 9:84. All right. If
Mm-hmm.
Matt Bowling ran 10, 11, that is 1.027% more, 0.027% slower than 984, right? So basically, you do 1011 divided by 984, you get 1.0274. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and then Justin Robinson, who ran 4484, you divide 4484 by 4372, which is the 10th fastest ever in the world all time. He goes to a 1.0256. So they both go to a 1.02 something, right? And then when you compare it to like that's like the equivalent to like
Okay.
a 1310.
Okay.
That's equivalent to like
Okay.
a 1310, because the 10th fastest mark now in the world in the 5K is 12:47. It's what Mohamed just ran. So
Yeah.
that's 23 seconds. If you're a 13:10 5K guy, you're 23 seconds behind the 10th fastest mark all time. And division wise, it's like percentage wise, it's very similar to running a 10
It's
10
I,
10 1.
I get that. The thing is, though, it feels like, at the championship level, 12:47 runners and 13:10 athletes can be closer because of the tactics. There's no tactics in 100, right? Like, there's no scenario, barring an injury, where Christian Coleman is going to lose to Matt Bowling, right? Barring an injury or just like a massive breakout underperformance by each athlete. That's not going to happen. But there is a scenario where, say, like an Eric Jenkins could beat Mohamed if the tactics. I know he's not American, but if the tactics, there's differences, right? Even with the time, we look at it as in the sprints, it's like they have no chance because look at their PRs. The PRs matter less on the distance side, just because this isn't going to be a 12:47 championship final. That just doesn't really happen. So maybe I understand you have to go with numbers when it gets into that, but I think there are some differences to where maybe you build in some, I don't know what the word is, but you build in some differences with the distance athletes versus the sprinters.
Yeah, I guess I can agree with that. I guess where do you think it becomes your PR doesn't matter? I guess after because 800, I feel like your PR matters, right? I feel like if you're a 143 guy versus a 145 guy, like
it's
there's
probably
no
5K and up. Probably is probably the only thing.
5K and up.
1500
So
still matters. If you're a 340 guy, you're not beating a 327 guy, probably, right?
Yeah. And then so you'd say that then it's 5K, 10K, and marathon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I can agree. I can agree with that. I think it's hard to kind of find that nuance, because while I think it's hard to know what a true 5K athlete's like true like rating is of like their personal best, because we don't know when they actually went to the well for a 5K mark, right? We know Mohamed went to the well. He ran 12:47. We know someone like Woody Kincaid went to the well when he runs 12:58. But Paul Chelimo, like you said, could go an entire season of only running 13:10. We know he never went to the well, right? Because he was just trying to win races. And the question is, how do I know that Eric Jenkins 13:10 last year was him like just running 13:10, or was it him like showing this is my pure fit, this is my max right now,
I got it.
And I guess that's what's hard. You don't know when an athlete is really putting out a full faith effort. I mean, that when it's like a superstar, when Paul Chelimo runs 13:12, he's better than that. But maybe Eric Jenkins, his best is right now is a 13:10, and that's why yeah,
I get it.
I don't know.
A fun game you
it's
can
just hard
play
to find
with
that nuance.
Yeah. A fun game you can play with these ratings is going down, starting from the top and working down and seeing how far you can get without before you don't know an athlete. And I feel very confident through 93, but then I get to the 92s and I'm pretty solid. I know basically everyone but two. And then
Who don't? Who,
it makes me think they're pole vaulters, but you got to let me know. Jacob Wooten and Matt Ludwig. I don't think I would recognize those guys if I saw them out on the street. Who are those guys?
they're both pole vaulters.
Okay. See, you always assume they're pole vaulters, right? I don't know why. You look at a name like Casey Lightfoot, and that's a pole vaulter. Like I don't know what it is. I'm not sure how that works. Maybe we just have a big crop of pole vaulters in this country relative to other countries. But you just look at a name and you can make that guess. So I suppose I get by on a technicality because I was able to guess that. And then I go down to the 91s. I don't think I would know Devon DeMoss if I saw him on the street. What event does he do?
What? Make a guess.
The 100?
Yeah, he's a sprinter.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Let's
I
okay, and
think.
then we really okay, we get
Hold
to
on.
the yeah. I was just going to say
Let me
we
double
get
check.
into
I
yeah,
think he
yeah,
runs the 100.
let's hope.
I hope he's not. I hope I didn't mess him up and he's actually a hurdler. No, I think
Oh, see that.
he's a sprinter. Oh man,
Okay, well, let me see.
you're making me second guess my knowledge of these people.
Well, let's see here.
Yeah, he's a
10:05
sprinter.
100.
Yeah, he's a
Yeah,
sprinter. Yeah, he's 10:05. Yeah.
he ran at Memphis. Okay. And then we get down to this is where things get really sketchy is the 90s. And if you can go, I want to hear, tweet at us or write us an email if you can go down through these lists and like get to a certain number before you don't know an athlete. Because as we guess, I can guess some names, but obviously I had to like I said, I would not recognize these athletes and I do this for a living. We get down to the 90 range. This is where I really start losing it here. Cordero Gray, never heard of him. Daryl Sullivan, never heard of him. Marcus
Really,
Parker, I don't know.
Daryl
I don't know
Sullivan's
who that
good. He's a
is.
high jumper from Tennessee. He
I'm
jumped.
not. I'm not good. I'm not good at the
He's
high
the
jump.
best
I
high.
don't.
He's the best high jumper in the country
Oh,
collegiately.
cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Cordero Gray is a sprinter. He's a 100-meter guy.
okay. Well,
Anyone else
let's
you
see how
don't know?
far. Let me see how far I can get on the women's side before I don't. I'm doing pretty good here. Hold on. I'm through 93. Ooh, now we got one pop up. Jania Stewart. I don't recognize that name. So we reached the
Jania Stewart?
92s on the women's. Huh? Is she a
You don't know
sprinter?
who that is?
No, I feel like I should, but no.
She's a hammer thrower.
See, there you go. Would not have known that. So I get to see that's my only one, and then we get to the again the 90s trip me up too. So we'll have like one or two before that. Then I get down to the 90 number, and then it's all over for me.
I
Amber
guess that
Hughes. I don't know who that
I mean,
is.
I guess it's just hard to like know like the top to know who the top 20 people are in 19 different events. You
It's
could
really
argue
hard.
maybe in 40 different events because you have men and women, right? That's a lot of
Mm,
people to like
right.
keep track of. And maybe you'll be able to know about it in 1 year because you're like really intense. But every year it changes up. There's new people that come in, old people that leave. So like over time, it's a lot of names to kind of constantly be aware of. So I don't blame you. It's okay. I also don't know a lot of these people's names. Some of them just got rated because, I took a mark and I was like, okay, that's where you are. Boom, done. So it's okay to not
Yeah.
know every single person. Um, you're not alone in not knowing
Cool.
800 track and field athletes of 2021. You're not alone.
That's good. I was worried. This was actually like a progress report. Like behind you were going to reveal behind a curtain. Our bosses were here judging me because I remember way back in the day when I was trying to get hired by FloTrack, I had like a Skype meeting with you before Skype meetings were all the rage. I guess Zoom meetings. But you asked me like cross country questions, and I think I stumbled on a few of them. And so it felt like that all over again. But this one would have been more intense. Like you look at the 82s. All right, Alfonso Jordan, give me his PRs. And I would have been like, 10, 10, 19. No,
He's a hammer
he
thrower,
throws
sir.
he throws the discus. Okay. This is tough. You can really get your knowledge going here if you go down, especially in the 70s. I think you made some of these names up. Admit that you made some of these names up. I think I don't want to shout out any names because I don't want somebody who's one of these people are like, hey, they called your name out and said you were a fake athlete. And like, I don't want to say that, but man, there's a lot of names here. There's got to be a couple that you just threw in there.
I don't. Well, I did think about should I put what event they're in as like an identifier so everyone knows. Okay, that don't know the name, but that person's a discus thrower. Okay, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I decided not to. I was like, no, we're just gonna no identifiers. I did throw in 2 surprise names. I'm not sure if you caught them, but I threw in one female name and one male name where they were not ranked in my system, but I threw them in just for the hell of it. Were you able to
on the
find
women's side?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I just
But, I mean,
Googled. We got Tui at 83.
Yes,
Is that one you're talking about? Okay.
Yeah, I threw her in there just for she
Okay.
doesn't have a mark that's like rated well at all, but I was like, I want to throw it, and then I'm guessing you can then assume who I threw in on the men's side.
Let me go see where he's at. Hold on. So she's at Caitlin Tui, high school star, NXN champion, is 83. And then we have Nico Young at 81. Interesting. Okay. Why is he lower than Tui?
I mean, that wasn't thought of. I wasn't thinking. There was probably a 2-hour or 3-hour separation between doing the men's and the women, so I probably forgot what I ranked Nico Young before I did Tui. It was more just like kind of throwing him. All right, let's put him in the low 80s is what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. I mean, Nico Young could, though. He's going to be the biggest jumper, right? Because if he has a collegiate season and he under Mike Smith and goes out and runs like a 13:30 or like a 13:20 5K as a true freshman, he's going to go from the 81 all the way up into the high 80s, low 90s. I think it'll be interesting. I mean, he's the player you want to get in franchise mode because in a year or two you're going to be able to get him for a cheap. So
that's true.
Buy cheap on Nico Young.
Now I saw a comment I think on your post about how do you even play this game? Like, what do you do? Just like mash the joystick or something? I will say, way back in the day, and I wasn't a big video game player growing up, but on my PlayStation, there was like an Athens Olympic video game that we had, and I don't even remember how we had it. So it was back from 2004, so it was probably released in like 2003. And that was exactly it. You just kind of like move the joystick I don't remember if there was distance events. I just remember the sprints, but it was harder than you would have thought. I don't imagine it would sell quite as well as football because, with Madden, it's well established. But you got to take this to the next step and actually like develop a video game for this. Are you capable and ready to do that?
Me personally, I'm not capable to do that, but I do agree that I think it is possible to make a good track and field video game because if you can make a golf video game interesting, I think you can make a track and field video game interesting because
don't even
golf,
hate on my Tiger Woods. That stuff's fun, man.
Yeah, all you're doing is just like you're seeing it move, you're lining it up, and you hit it at the right moment, right?
Yeah.
And you could do that for one. You could do that for all the throwing events, right? You can line it up, hit it at the right moment. You could do that for a lot of jumping events. You line it up and you make sure you pick your angle that you want to go, and then you like make sure you see the athlete like run. And as soon as they hit that spot, you want to make sure you hit the button so they jump at the right moment. Like you could find ways to make the different events like it's all about hand-eye coordination. Like I imagine like the pole vault, like you could make it like a 2-part thing. It's like you want to make sure you have the speed, and then you click X right when they hit a moment, and then you have to click like X a second time to make sure you have the bend. You could do all this type of stuff.
That would be cool.
The only one that would be kind of hard to make intriguing is I don't know how you would make a distance race
Yeah, I don't know
entertaining. Like,
either.
what are you doing the entire time? Like, are you just constantly? I don't know.
I don't understand either. I mean, it would be cool if it factored in like obviously like you'd have your Donovan Brazier and you're like, oh man, I'm gonna win here. But then you could like select how fast you go out to the 10th of a second. So it's not even that. It's just like you're kind of I don't know, the race kind of runs itself. Like you have to control and make sure you stay on the inside lanes and you can't like bump into certain athletes, but maybe there's
Ooh,
something where
maybe
you can like
this.
dial in like a 49.8 second first lap. I don't know. It's a little complicated, but let me know
This is
what
probably
you
what you
got.
do. You maybe you can have like you have like a bar, which is like your energy, right? And each athlete has a different amount of energy, right? So
Right,
you picked
right.
Donovan Brazier, his amount of energy. And basically you're controlling the track bot the majority of the race, you're just making sure you stay on the track. So you use the joystick to make sure you're turning, right? Because if you don't, then the athlete will just run straight on the curve and not turn left, right? So
Yeah,
that'll be part of the dynamic. But then what you can
yeah.
do is you have like a booster, right? And you only get to use so much of the booster, right?
Hmm.
And so you want to time when to like use the boost. So like you basically time your kick. And like once if you use it all up in the first lap, you have no boost
You're gonna
left and then
die. Yeah.
you'll die. So it's all about strategy of when to click the boost button. Like, oh, I'm gonna use 5% of the boost now because there was a move made. Or now I'm gonna use 20% of the boost. But then once you used up 100% of the boost, then you're just done. So it'd be like the strategy of like, all right, I'm in a 10K. When do I want to like use it up? And then you have ways to like the boost, like once you use it, it kind of goes back up slowly, right? So there's a little bit of it's not like it's a finite number. So like if
Yeah.
you boost a lot in the beginning and then for like 5 minutes, like it slowly moves back up to because you get more energy because you're running slower again. I don't know. I think that could be like a way to like
Yeah.
make it kind of
I
like
know.
running out of gas in a video racing game,
There you go. I uh
like using
I
up
know who would use
nitro.
his boost really early. It'd be Nigel Amos. He'd be like, first lap, all boost. Let's go. I'm gonna try to run 45 and hang on. Uh
I mean,
that
there'll be
that's a
funny.
good thing to do. Yeah, I like that idea.
There'll be there'll be funny screen records, right? Of like people
Yeah.
playing this game, like having like really bad racing strategies to see what happens.
Right.
you know, I you know people would like be watching like the Olympics and then seeing like an athlete do something crazy and then they recreate it in the video game and it'll
Hmm.
be a great like yeah. And then the sprinting events, you just have like the tapping really quick for like 9 seconds and the hurdle like
Yeah.
tapping over each hurdle really quickly.
Oh yeah, that could be
It's
hard. Yeah, some of it
possible.
could be really difficult, right?
It could be good. The problem is you need someone at EA Sports or at Ubersoft, I don't know, all these video game companies who like loves track so much that they're willing to spend millions of dollars in time to like hire all the people
Yeah.
to like stop working on Grand Theft Auto 45 and make Track and Field 21.
Well, yeah, and you'd have to have athletes signed with deals for these video games because inevitably they'd have to have a ton of the big name athletes come in to replicate their form with those little balls they put around people. It's a lot of effort for a game that maybe only about 200 people would buy, but
Yeah, that's the
if they
problem,
come out
right?
with it, I don't have a game system at all right now, but if they came out with this, I would purchase the whole thing. Like this would be worth it for me to make this happen. I think it would be fun because you'd have all the athletes celebrations. You get Carson Warholm slapping his face, get Noah
And
Lyles
then
screaming and doing fun stuff on the start line. I mean, there's just a lot of potential here.
you have athletes playing the game themselves, right? You saw
So
like
much fun.
the NBA 2K, LeBron, uh, Quinn Cook, and Anthony Davis played NBA 2K while in the bubble like a few days ago. And the way that works is you have like an avatar, and a bunch of people can all join at the same time. So everyone found out that LeBron, Quinn Cook, and Anthony Davis are their avatars in this game. So a bunch of people quickly logged on their avatars and just started following them, and they had like this giant pack of people just following them around the game because they're like, oh, that's
Yeah.
actually LeBron James.
Oh my god. That would be awesome. Way to bring the track community together. I'm all for this. I just don't know. Who's going to pony up the cash for this? Maybe that T-Mobile guy who's into track, whatever his name is, John Laguerre, whatever. Maybe he can pony up $1 million or $2 million for this and develop it. I'd be a consultant. I'd be happy to help with the ratings because, well, I think you've come up with a good system. I take issue with a few of your numbers, but
Well, you're not the only one who takes issue.
No, there's going to be plenty of people.
Shaheem Wright on Twitter says they out here disrespecting me.
Yikes.
Chris Welch says my rating was a 77. Really? Do you even know who Chris Welch is?
I don't, and no disrespect to him, but no. Okay.
Taylor Banks says you got to fix this, and then trash emoji. Another guy says y'all could have gave me an 80 instead of a 78. The person who had the best reaction, I was like, this is the type of reaction I liked it. Was Miles Pringle, D2 great 400-meter runner. He said, "Shoot, I'll take it. Wait until I get those upgrades, though." So, like, he recognized. I think Miles Pringle's probably in the low 90s, 89.
He's an 89. Yeah.
He's not saying like why am I not a 97, right? So. So.
Well, if you're listening to this and you're an athlete, go find your name on the list and then tweet at us why Gordon may have done you unfairly.
Dirty. Done you dirty.
Done you dirty. There you go. That's what I was looking for. I just want to make clear I had nothing to do with the making of this. So don't get mad at me. It's all Gordon. No, but seriously, check out these lists on the site. We have them up on the front page. The video game track and field player ratings out for both men and women. That'll do it for us today. He's Gordon Mack. I'm Lincoln Shrike. We will see you tomorrow.